Welcome to Beginners Academy. Tonight our topic is Echolink. My name is Greg, N4KGL. I'm in Dothan, Alabama, and I have good news. Echolink is free. It's a great capability, and you don't need any radio equipment, but it is limited to amateur radio operators. Well, I had to ask Copilot to introduce Echolink, and I'm not going to read every word here, but some of the key things. Echolink uses voice over IP technology. It will allow connections radio to radio, computer to radio, or computer to computer. So it's another way for amateur radio operators to communicate. And there are over 350,000 validated users in 159 countries, and there may be 6,000 users on at any time. Some good news is that it works on multiple platforms, including Windows, Android, iOS, and web browsers, and all versions are free of charge. And Echolink allows users to connect to repeaters, simplex links, and other Echolink users. One important feature is to fully register for Echolink, you need to be validated as a licensed amateur radio operator, and we will talk more about that as we move along. So I guess you don't know, well, you've heard it just seems to do everything over voice over IP. So it depends on your platform, but you're going to want to download Echolink. And there is a Echolink for Windows. And if you go to echolink.org, you can find the download. I've just captured a screenshot from that page, and it's a usual application installer. And one of the first things you will do is enter your call sign, and that's not enough to use it. You'll need to go through the authentication process. The good news, most of us are using smartphones and are familiar with apps. So there is Echolink app for iOS, which is Apple. So you can get that in the iOS App Store. There's an Android app from available in Google Play. And the next option is Echolink Web, and I just used that today. And it doesn't require you to install any software. It doesn't require you to use the app. It just runs in any web browser. So I was not aware of that, and it worked for me. So it couldn't be more universal as far as the platforms that you can use Echolink from. I won't go through step by step. I know one of our well, we have I'm a little late to say this, but we have our Zoom audience, and we also have a YouTube audience. We're not live streamed, but we roll these out, the recorded talks, to YouTube. So we appreciate everyone watching. It's in our Panama City Amateur Radio Club YouTube channel. Well, with that out of the way, validation is probably the hardest thing you'll do in regard to Echolink. Um, it may vary how hard it is. But basically, you'll want to go to the validation page on echolink.org, which I'm showing here, and enter your call sign. Hit continue, and it will basically lead you through to get validated, depending where in the world you are. And if you are a U.S. amateur, you're going to want to get a PDF copy of your license from the FCC ULS system. So when I say things might be hard, I don't know. ULS might be hard for some. Hopefully, it's been a long time since I did it. So, but anyway, you can get there. You may need to know your FRN. And if you don't, there's a way to get it. So I'm not going to go through all the details, but it's necessary to get a PDF copy of your license. If you downloaded the Windows version, this is a screenshot, and it it looks pretty busy, but it's got a whole lot of capability. And one of the features is echo test. So if you want to know your microphone and your headset are working and you're connected on the network, you can do an echo test, and it will let you say a few words and it will echo those back to you. And but there's one detail about using Echolink on Windows at your home, on your home network, and that is you need to have a couple of UDP ports forwarded to the PC that you're using. So probably, in the tech savvy audience here, maybe doing gaming or this and that, you've already done this. If you haven't, you may do a little research for your router and see how you can get into it as an administrator. So that may be a little challenging, but you don't necessarily have to use the Windows version. You could use the apps or you could use the browser version. So it just depends what you want to do. I use the app. I have an Android app, and I use that. In fact, just as a user, I don't use the Windows version. All right. Well, digging a little deeper, there are two categories of users in Echolink. One is a single user mode, that's most of us. Okay. But there's also a sysop mode, which, would be hooking up your Echolink application, the Windows application, to a transceiver so you could provide a simplex link, which is a -L, or a repeater link. And I've done a repeater link in Panama City and here in Dothan. So, your average user doesn't need to do that. I'm just doing it kind of as a service. But if somebody wants to take it over, they're welcome to. But nevertheless, we'll talk more about that. And in Panama City, when I just got back into amateur radio, Echolink was on, quote, on the repeater. And I thought Echolink had to be at the computer, had to be at the repeater site. And I had that in my mind for years, months, and it can be. That's the hardwired approach, number one here, a direct connection. But it doesn't have to be. And the remote link approach, both of these are really bridges from the repeater to the Echolink system. And it turned out in Panama City that the person providing Echolink did it from his home, and he was just connecting his PC to a transceiver, and it was like anybody else on the repeater, but it could pipe in back and forth users from from the Echolink network and let them get on the repeaters. So it just kind of blew my mind. So for Panama City and Dothan, I have an old computer and some radios. Well, radio for each computer and an antenna, and it's set up for the repeater, but it's not at the repeater. It's at my home. So there. All right. Well, as you in the beginning, there were just so many options of ways you could use or things you could do with Echolink. And this diagram is kind of vague in a way, but kind of one of the most interesting things that could happen is that mobile stations in one area could talk to mobile stations in another area via Echolink. And on one side, they could be on a repeater or a simplex link, and same thing on the other. So, but this magic happens because they're bridges from the area to the Echolink internet link, as it's labeled on this diagram. So I will say that probably the feature that people don't realize it exists is that, say that a mobile in area A can put in the node number for any Echolink node and get connected. Okay. And that's done through DTMF tones. And Kenwood radios have memories. They have like tone, like quick dial for Echolink. And I just haven't, well, frankly, I haven't tried it myself, but that capability is there. So anyway, you can have, as you can see, this involves the internet link, but it can go to RF at the endpoints, or it could be just users from one computer or app to another computer. So, wow, there's just a lot of ways it could be used. All right, I've been mentioning these nodes. The people in Dothan might not know we have one for Panama City and vice versa. So in Panama City, it's N4KGL-R gives access to the Panama City Club repeater, W4RYZ on 145.210. So if you wanted to check into or just find out what's going on in Panama City, you could, from your app or whatever, you could connect, and we'll show some screenshots a little later. So it's in both places. And tonight I wanted to check into the Panama City net, so I used Echolink to get in. And I know Alan and Barbara have been out of town and they'd like to get into the Dothan net on Tuesdays. And if Echolink is up here, that can be done. Okay, so you don't have to worry about this, but so we're running the Echolink Windows application in sysop mode, and I'm using Kenwood transceivers. They're, I didn't have to do a lot to, they essentially had the cables ready made. So I connected the transceiver to the computer, and then it works. One thing you may or may not know is that multiple users can connect at once, and I've got it set up for 4 users. And hopefully, all net control operators who want to take check-ins on Echolink should leave a healthy pause after asking for Echolink check-ins. And the reason is Echolink user can't transmit until the repeater drops out. So it won't let you try to transmit over somebody else. So it's going to force you to wait till the repeater drops out. So, and if there's any questions from our Zoom group here, feel free. All right.
This is Alan. I had a question for you.
Go ahead, Alan.
So just to be clear, you're saying that I can use my HT in my vehicle, and if I could figure out how to get the right DTHM tone, I can use that to connect to Panama City and talk to you?
Well, you could get into the Echolink system. Now, if you're in Panama City, well, here's the thing. If you're in Panama City, well, you can get on the repeater anyway.
Right.
But let's say you were in, wait, I'm sorry. I get Panama City and Dothan mixed up. Anyway, if you were in Dothan, you could get on the repeater. But you should be able in Panama City from a HT or mobile link to Echolink here in Dothan. Now you'll probably be the first to try it, but the system is supposed to work that way.
All right. Well, I'll plan on looking at it when I get a chance.
Yeah,
That's for sure.
yeah. There's details about the format of punching the buttons, and of course your radio will need to be capable of doing the old touchtone tones.
Right.
Yeah. And going way back, we used to have phone patches on, and we used to use DTMF to make phone calls from our mobile, which was super cool. But it wasn't Echolink, it was just a phone patch on a repeater. But cool idea.
Yeah.
All
All
right.
right.
Okay. So Now, a probably a typical usage of, or what I hear people interested in, is maybe they're from the Dothan area and they're from out of town, and the Tuesday night net is coming up and they'd like to check in. They should be able to use their app and get into the node here as long as it's up and check into the net. So, or they may just come on some other time. Actually, here in Dothan, I've had, just listening to the repeater, and I've heard people check in via Echolink from out of the country, like in Europe, Germany. Um, Sometimes it's people that are familiar with the area and they just want to say hello. I know I talked to, it was probably from Germany, a fella that he had done work with the helicopters and such at Fort Rucker. And so there's really a lot of people who, one way or the other, have spent time in Dothan, and they may want to just check in and ask about their friends. Okay. All right. The next slide here is just some screenshots from my Android phone. It will probably look similar on a Apple iPhone, but over on the left, I guess it's just the standard menu. We got our echo test. We got different categories of users and repeaters and all, but probably if you know what you're looking for, I don't have a screenshot of it, but up there where they have 3 dots, there is a search option. So you could click on the 3 dots, click on search, and put in W4DHN, and it would take you there. It would connect you. All right, we've talked about echo test, and you can do that from your app. It's really just testing your setup, but it's a big confidence builder if it actually works, which it should. Now, over there on the right, once you've searched and found something and connected, it will keep your recent QSOs in a list. So by clicking on the people or the groups up, the users up there, it will give me my recent QSOs, and that's where I can find Panama City and Dothan because I've already gone to those before. That one, N4KGL-L, I was just trying to figure out what I was doing. I created that, but it's not really a thing, so you can just ignore that. And N4STC-R is a silent keys, but it's still on there. Okay, I got a couple more screens here. So once you get connected, the screen on the left is what you'll see, and it identifies you. But if there are other people checked into the node, they'll be listed there. And you can actually talk to them, even if the repeater isn't working. But nevertheless, if 2 or 3 people are trying to check in, they'll show up in that page there for, Panama City or Dothan, whatever you're trying to do. And if you were a net control, you could check in on Echolink for the node, and then you would know if anybody was waiting. So you don't have to do that. You can just ask for check-ins, but but there may not be anybody on there, and you would know it if you checked in and you only saw yourself. All right. Well, something that may catch you initially is um, how do you transmit? And they have some indicators on the bottom there. I think when the RX is on, you can't transmit. So you have to wait for that to go off. And then you can click the transmit button and you'll get the big microphone on the right. And you can talk like we are on Zoom and and do your check-in or whatever you want to do. And on the app, this particular app, you just tap on that microphone and it will close that screen and you won't be talking anymore. You'll be listening. So, well, it's it's no harder. Anybody that's on Zoom tonight is basically doing this. But the neat thing about Echolink is it's been around a long, long time, ever since voice over IP got started. So it's it's amazing what it does, and it's amazing that it carries on. And one more possibility is using the web browser version, and this is a screenshot of where I brought that up. I was able to search for like W4DHN, and I was able to connect to that, and you know, now something we haven't talked about. I'm going to save it, but you see there is a call CQ button, and we'll talk about that in a minute. All right. Well, this is such a neat capability. It can, is it ham radio? Yes. It can go out over RF. It doesn't have to, but there's so many just capable people who donate their time and expertise to ham radio. And I actually listened to episode 487 on QSO Today podcast. And Jonathan Taylor, K1RFD, is the creator of Echolink, and he's still taking care of it behind the scenes, and he may even come up with some new things for it. So we just certainly do appreciate his efforts, and it's just a smart guy. We have so many smart people in ham radio. All right. Okay. The takeaway, well, when a person gets their license, oops. All right. Well, say that you just got your license, you didn't have any equipment, but you wanted to do something. Well, you could try out Echolink, and there's no charge, no radio equipment required, and so you could get on the repeater. You could listen to the repeater for a little while, and so that's pretty much. I've got our Zoom audience up here. Do you guys have any questions or comments for us? And
Yeah, got a couple questions, Greg.
Okay,
so you were on it earlier during the net meeting, you said?
that's right.
So you don't do anything different, like you have an offset when you're on radio. You just push the button on the computer,
Right.
talking or not talking. That's it.
Right. The radio in this case in Panama City is all set up for the repeater, so you don't have to worry about tones or offsets or anything like that. So
Okay. And I
Yeah.
just, and I did get accredited for it. I haven't used it yet, so I'm anxious
Okay.
to use it. But the one difficulty was the PDF of your call sign.
Right.
It took me 4 tries. Do not take the PDF and open it from the FCC site. I kept doing it. You have to take the electronic version and just stick it on to the application there. Then it goes through.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, anytime I mess around with the ULS website, I have a little bit of fear, but,
Yeah.
well, thanks for that tip. They say don't open it, but it's hard to resist
Right, exactly.
and a little mysterious why you can't open it.
Yeah.
So I think, Alan, you've used Echolink.
Yeah, I use it quite often actually. Yeah, we go
Yeah.
down to Central Florida and I'll check in from down there.
Yeah.
Uh, I really like it because, like you said, you don't have to have any specialized equipment. You just pick it up and start talking, listen.
Yeah.
Um, you One of the things that I found, and I know it's strange, and I apologize to everybody, but there's a a node in Australia. It's a aviation community, and I just I take I get onto that line and just listen to those guys, and they just talk about anything and everything. It's just fun to listen to those
Well,
guys.
I think that's an example. There's things about Echolink. I think I've lost my slides somehow, but there's even more than we talked about. And there was that CQ button. If you press the CQ button, it will let you connect to other people who have pressed their CQ button. So you can kind of randomly connect to somebody like you do on the air if you wanted to do that by using that CQ feature. I haven't used that, but
I haven't tried that either, but I may one day.
Yeah.
But I mean, you just go through the, for me, I go through the search and just look at all the different uh,
Yeah.
nodes, and I'll just pick one and see if anybody's talking on it and see what
Yeah.
they're talking about. If it's something I'm interested in, I'll listen. If not, I'll go to the
Yeah.
next node and just keep rolling through
Well,
and until I
uh,
find something. And
well, I know in Panama City, well, I did not mention it's a setting for the node, but when you connect it on the repeater, it will say, N4 KGL
Connected.
is on Echolink, not those exact words, but it will announce people who have connected. And uh, it's fine. Sometimes people connect, they don't hear anything, so they go away and they disconnect.
right.
That's fine. Um, um,
Well, like you said, it
yeah,
will tell you who is on Echolink, but it will not
yeah,
tell you who's on air talking. And so, you
yeah,
really you can tell because, like you said earlier, there is a slight delay with Echolink. So
yeah,
when these guys are chewing the rag and they're just one right after the other, they're on air. That's for sure.
yeah. Anybody else had some experience with Echolink?
Yeah, Greg. I
Yeah,
did that a while. I did that a few years back, and there was like different groups that you can get into.
yeah,
And I forget how you do that, but like a certain group can only get in there if you're invited and so on. Can you elaborate on that?
well, I haven't done any of that, so I can't. Maybe somebody else can, but um, I know there's groups out there, and I think they call them conference servers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
that I just haven't tapped that capability yet. So
Yeah, they would be like a selected group that can
yeah,
sign in, and I think you can put a request to come in, and they may or may let you in or not. But
yeah. Well,
it was a while back since I did that. I
yeah.
mean,
It's
it
probably
was,
like Zoom. It was a
yeah,
predecessor. You could call it it was one of the predecessors to Zoom. Of course, Zoom has video, but
I
uh,
don't, I don't want to go and shoot in a different direction. But how is this? I know it's different, but D Star, it works somewhat on the same basis. Can you elaborate on the
well,
differences?
well, well, it's a different network, and there's different way to get registered, and that's an area of the hobby that's just kind of like exploded. And so there's the equivalent of an Echolink network for D Star, and your radio, uses that digital voice format for D Star. But one enabling thing to do that is called a hotspot. And we've covered that before, but we'll probably cover it again. So there's D Star, Fusion, and all these things. So if you buy a radio, uh, I believe if you buy it from ICOM, it it may have D Star on it. If it's Yaesu, it may have Fusion. So these are their own worlds. However, they figured out a way to connect all the worlds together. So Fusion to D Star. So it's a topic too big for me to cover in detail, but it probably Echolink was the inspiration for them to organize D Star the way they did.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a. It certainly came out many years ago.
yeah,
I
yeah,
at least 20 years ago because
yeah,
I
yeah.
remember mentioning when it first came
I
out, and I had to wait for a day or two till they gave me the
right.
access.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I did the same thing, and I've even had a hotspot, and I've had all this, but I haven't used it in the last few months. So I'd have to dig it out and figure it out all again. But
Now,
yeah,
a friend of mine that's really into this stuff, he asked me if Panama City has a link to Echolink, and he went through the process of calling specifically down there, tying in, and being able to talk to you guys.
yeah.
I don't know if you covered that already or not. Maybe you did, and I missed it. But if you went through that process, what would that be?
Well, now I'm not. Well, there's a directory for Echolink, and see, I already knew the call sign. It may not be too obvious that for Panama City it's N4KGL-R, but um, it, if you did a search for a location, it would probably tell you to that there was a link to the repeater. So once you know it's N4KGL-R, well, probably when you do a search for it, it'll show up and you can click on it and then it will connect you. And then it will announce you. Actually, if there's a discussion going on the repeater like a net, you might not get announced because it's not going to do announcement when other people are talking. But nevertheless, if you wanted to get on the net, you probably should check in about 10 to 5 minutes early, and um, and then hopefully on the net they'll say, "Do we have any check-ins on Echolink?" and give a pause, and then it'd be, when you talk on your app or your computer, and there is an option for the radio, but nevertheless, probably your app or your computer, you'll be on the repeater just like the other folks that may be are at home in their mobile or on a HT. So you'll be connected to the repeater. Does that sound, is that clear,
Yeah.
Frank? Yeah. Well, if you've
Yeah.
never done it,
Uh,
it'll make a lot more sense after you do it. But yeah.
yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it's as clear as you can make it. You have to kind of go
Yeah.
through to remember all the steps. But I do remember him doing it from his HT.
Yeah.
And I didn't know
Well,
about how, but
well, he's done more than I have because he may have used those, entered a node number. Now, this entering a node numbering, you have to be in the area or on a repeater that's connected to Echolink to do that. Not every
yeah,
repeater is going to do it. So,
yeah, he worked to a repeater here that was on Echolink, and he was
yeah.
always able to go over there.
Well,
Anyway,
you could spend your whole day going through repeaters and conference
yeah,
groups if you
yeah,
wanted to. Yeah.
yeah. Well, I know it can be done. I myself
Yeah.
I couldn't repeat what he did, but I
Yeah.
I thought I'd bring it up. It'd be worth
With
experimenting.
yeah.
Oh.
Well,
I,
I appreciate our Zoom audience. We have some relatively new hams, and we have some hams have been in the hobby a long time, some mentors, and they help out on here. But what I like to say is our beginners become mentors about the second time they check in. They're explaining it to us. So,
well,
uh,
there's so much out there that we need more than one brain to help us figure
yeah,
everything out. So,
yeah. So, any other comments about our topic tonight? Yeah.
I appreciate it. I appreciate you doing it. It helped a lot.
Well, you're welcome, Greg, from another Greg. Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, well, I need to stop my share and turn off recording, and this will show up on our YouTube channel along with many other videos or talks that we record.